I guess you clicked this video because you're left-handed and you're wondering what type of violin you should play. A right-handed violin or a left-handed violin? In this video we will discuss the pros and cons of both choices so that you can make a good decision for yourself. The first thing to consider is the type of music that you would like to play and the goals that you have for yourself with regards to violin playing. For instance, if you really would like to become a classical professional player, you might want to consider a right-handed instrument, as orchestras are generally not that open-minded yet about accepted left-handed players. The reason for that is that the bowing would look out of sync on the moment that a left-handed player or a left-handed violinist would be added to the orchestra, and also the seating would have to be changed. So normally in professional ensembles only right-handed players, or not right-handed players, but people playing on a right-handed violin are accepted. I don't necessarily agree with this, but unfortunately this is how it is right now, so this is something to consider. At the same time, if you're an amateur or wanting to play alternative styles of music, think about folk or gypsy jazz, or maybe you would like to play classical music but not on a level where it would be a big problem if the bowing would look out of sync. In that case you could choose for a left-handed violin. The second, and in my opinion the most important thing to consider, is your own comfort. You might want to try playing on a left-handed and on a right-handed violin just to get a feel for it and get an idea of what feels easier or harder. There are some left-handed violinists that swear by a left-handed violin and really say that they feel so much more comfortable playing a left-handed violin. And the benefit of that left-handed violin would be that your left hand, your dominant hand, would be the bow hand. On a right-handed violin, that would be your right hand. So more generally speaking, the bow hand is very difficult to master, and it might be easier to master the bow hand with your left hand. There was also a book written by Ryan Thompson. He is a left-handed violinist, and even though there's no scientific study, it's still very interesting to read. And he did his own small research with mandolin players, violin players, and he asked left-handed players to switch from their right-handed instrument to a left-handed instrument. And most of the players actually said it felt easier for them to play on a left-handed violin versus a right-handed violin. So definitely try it out if that is true for you as well and that it feels more comfortable. Some other voices say that maybe there's a benefit of playing a right-handed violin as a left-handed player. In the end, we use both hands to play the violin, both your right hand and your left hand. So that means that maybe on a right-handed violin it would be easier to master the fingering positions, because your dominant hand would be the hand that is playing all the notes. So maybe it would be easier to play a little bit more quickly, for instance, because generally your dominant hand is the hand that is easiest to move for us. Some very famous violinists have chosen to go this path. Think for instance about Nicola Benedetti. She is also a left-handed player that plays on a right-handed violin, and she's a great player. Some even say that Paganini might have been a left-handed player and that was one of the reasons why he could master such difficult left-hand techniques. If that's true, well, I leave it up to you. But most importantly, feel it. What feels comfortable to you? Of course, there's a general tendency in society to give people a right-handed violin. Also left-handed players as a child. Normally everyone will get a right-handed violin. So, of course, there will be famous violin players who are left-hand dominant and are playing on a right-handed violin. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it would have been easier for them the other way around or harder. It is just maybe also the tendency that we have as a society to give left-handed players a right-handed violin. And of course it seems logical because you use both hands. But then at the same time, you use both hands in a different way. So try it out and feel what feels comfortable. The third thing to consider is if you have any disabilities in any of your hands and what hand would be more suitable to use a bow or to use for the fingering. For instance, if you have any reason why it would be more difficult for you to play the fingering with your left hand, you might want to switch to a right-handed violin and the other way around. So depending on if you have any disabilities and the severity of them, you could choose to play the violin with opposite hands. Another thing to consider is that there are currently a lot more right-handed violins available than left-handed, and that generally there's more quality violins on the right-handed side, simply because they are made a lot more. So on the moment that you would like to play on a very beautiful instrument, you might want to check out the options. Are there any left-hand violins in your area? And if you would like to grow later on, for instance, if you become a more intermediate or advanced player, you might want to choose a violin that sounds better. And maybe if you're a left-handed player, that will cause a bit more difficulties, and you might even want to have a violin maker make a violin for you. Some people think that it would be as simply as just changing the chin rest position and changing the order of the strings, and then you could just play on the other side. But unfortunately that isn't the case, because the back holes would have to be reversed, and also the bass bar and the sound posts that are under the bridge should be repositioned, and the bridge should be turned the other way around, and so on. So there's definitely a few things to consider there. Generally, violin builders have more experience building right-hand instruments, so they might be more professional at it. But of course, for that would be a solution as well, to just use a normal right-handed violin and to place it on your left shoulder. And of course you could change your chin rest to the other side. But then the E string would be the upper string and the G string the lower string. So it would be the other way around, as if you were playing a normal left-handed violin. But there are people that were able to learn the violin this way. A good example for that is actually Mazizak. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's a Canadian fiddler and he plays the violin the other way around. You could definitely have a look at that to see. I will link his video in my blog post, and you can find my blog post below this video. Unfortunately, one of the considerations should also be, does my local violin teacher want to teach left-handed violin? There are still a lot of violin teachers that swear by right-handed violins, that this is the only way to learn how to play the violin. So if you are living in a small town and you would like to take offline lessons, by the way, there's also online lessons. Check out my violin school, www.juliasviolinacademy.com. This is my online violin academy for adult beginners. But anyway, if you would like to take offline lessons, you have to check with your local instructor if they would be willing to teach you the other way around. And for many teachers it won't be any problem. But of course we have some classical teachers that have a very specific idea of how the violin should be played, and that left-handed players should be playing on the right-handed violin. The last way that you might be able to decide what type of violin you will choose is to choose a violin that has a meaning to you. For instance, some of us are getting a violin from our grandparents after they die, and this motivates us to start learning. And of course, in that case, it would be great to start learning on an instrument that is close to your heart, that you have a family connection to, and then you might want to choose a right-handed violin. I would say in general, if you are unsure and if you don't feel what is more comfortable to you, start with a right-handed violin, because the right-handed violin is still the norm, and you can do anything with a right-handed violin, and with a left-handed violin you have to adapt a little bit more. It's a bit harder to find an instrument, you have to think the other way around sometimes if you're watching instruction videos. So I would start with the right-handed one, and then if you feel for any reasons that the other one feels truly more comfortable, then of course switch. And don't worry about it, there's still a lot of things. You can play everything that you can play on a right-handed violin or the left-hand violin as well. It's just that if you truly don't feel that much more comfort, both types of violin feel uncomfortable. And let's be honest, that is often the case in the beginning. When we just start playing the violin, both types feel uncomfortable. Well, then you can try to start on a right-handed one. But if you have a chance, of course, try it out. Go to a local violin shop, try out the left-handed, right-handed violin. And I'm also really curious to hear from you in the comments. Left-handed players. If you are a left-handed player, please comment below what type of violin you chose to play on, right-handed or left-handed, why you made this decision. Maybe this could also, let's just create a chat in which everybody's helping each other to make a decision, because I am a right-handed player myself. So even though I have talked a lot with left-handed players, of course I don't have the experience that you have as a left-handed player yourself. So I'm really interested also to hear from you and maybe help each other out in the comments Share about your experience being a left-handed violin player and what it was like. And maybe you will just inspire someone else to go the same path as you have chosen. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to keep updated with my violin lessons, please subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification button so that you won't miss my weekly lessons. And then I hope to see you again next week in the next violin lessons. And until then, goodbye and good luck practicing.